I've really had quite a settling into and understanding this trip. And it's to embody my most confident self. And now confidence and I have had quite a journey, because to say I had to learn to be a confident caregiver is an understatement, because the amount of things that it took to keep my husband alive, especially towards the end, sometimes I still marvel at that hope as to the things she just figured out how to do. And yeah, disassociated for much of it, just survival purposes, but really, really harnessed a confidence in my caregiving. And then Steve passed away. And then all of a sudden I couldn't figure out how to go out in the world. And I couldn't figure out how to go to the grocery store without feeling panicked, or have conversations, or drive my car, or even think about going back to work. And so I had to basically rebuild myself in every aspect, but the most important one was confidence. And the more and more I was able to build my confidence, the more and more I was able to manage my anxiety. I was able to go do some really exciting things. I went back to work. And this is why it's such an important thing that I teach my clients now, is confidence. And it's not that, ooh, I look pretty. I'm not talking about that confidence, which that's fun too. Like, obviously, that's why I like clothes. I just like looking pretty. But it's deeper, much deeper. This is a deeper confidence. This is that confidence and trusting in your ability to just manage life. That is so powerful. And it is literally the biggest thing you can do for your anxiety and for just calling in the life you want. Costa Rica is full of confident people. And it's quite a wonderful thing to marvel at. Everyone's just confidently walking down the beach, or running, or surfing, or doing yoga on the beach, and there's dance, and everyone's very embodied. And it is so inspirational to witness people in their most confident, embodied self. And I quite love it, and I have felt that energy just kind of tapping into me. And it's interesting because I can remember going to a nonprofit where I was being asked to speak, and I was having a panic attack at the table with the guy sitting next to me. I just became friends with him, and he was so lovely and so encouraging, and literally changed the trajectory of my life, whether he knows it or not. And my friend was on stage just doing such a good job being on stage, and I said to him, I was like, is she not the most amazing? Just like, look at her on stage shining. It's so beautiful. And he was like, confidence is the most important thing anyone can ever learn. And he's like, I want you to remember all of the things you've overcome so that you can feel more confident when it's your turn to go on that stage. Now, I went on that stage and absolutely panicked, but also found myself pretty like pleased with how I performed. And then I remember somebody said afterwards, it's like a true professional shows up to their best even when they're sort of freaking out and they don't know how. And my new friend also said, you embodied some confidence up there, and it was hard to tell if I hadn't been sitting here watching you panic the whole time to know that you were freaking out. So confidence boosts are so very important that I oftentimes work on that with my clients, whether they say that's what they're here for or not, because the more you can become confident in your ability to manage life or to show up to whatever is being asked of you, the less you have reason for panic or freak out. And I will say the thing about putting yourself out there is one of the best ways to build your confidence, and you have to get really used to being uncomfortable, because that's where you go along those growth edges and actually build the confidence and get to witness you show up in all of your glory. And I will say that confidence is also contagious, because watching my friend on stage, I was just like, I want to tap into that. And then I was invited by a new friend here to go to this dance class, and it was just a bunch of women doing this embodied dance. And I definitely felt uncomfortable. It was way out of my comfort zone. Like, everyone knew each other. I was brand new. I had just met my friend that day that was taking me. And so part of the reason I said yes is because I was uncomfortable, because saying yes to the things that have made me uncomfortable in the past. Thankfully, I have that awareness and that knowledge and that wisdom that it has made my life level up. So I go to this dance class. I'm a little awkward at first, but everyone's like really inviting and sweet. And then I just witnessed everyone just move in their own bodies and just be so confident. It just oozed, like it was vibrating. And I instantly felt invited to my own confidence. And it was so cool in the way in which I was able to witness the contagiousness of it. And it's probably why I've been drawn to everyone here that's just been like confidently moving throughout this space. It's Ticos and tourists alike, like, and people that have moved here. What's it called when somebody leaves the country and goes and lives somewhere else? You know what I'm trying to say. Just to be around that confident energy has really been quite beautiful. Now, there are some misunderstandings of confidence that I would like to one main one that I would like to address is that just because you start to build your confidence and tap into your confidence doesn't mean that life isn't still going to come knock you down. It just means that you're going to feel more assured of your ability to stand back up. And so it is with confidence that I was able to come to that conclusion about the sacrifice that it took for me to come here, or for me to be where I'm at right now, and the fact that I am confident that I'm being rewarded for the efforts I have put into the world. Not just for taking care of Steve, and life's blessing me because of the love and attention and care I put into somebody. Also, for being very, very vulnerable and open about the fact that I didn't show up perfectly and I had to freaking face all of my monsters and accept that they existed and do all the really, really hard work to tame them and understand my shadow versus be afraid of them and run away. It's a confidence thing where you understand that there needs to be boundaries, you need to be a priority, there needs to be a lot of work, mental clearing, grounding, a lot of practice, and all of the ways in which I've been able to overcome and heal has just done nothing but build my confidence. But that does not mean that I'm still not a little bit, and so that's the most important part as you're building your confidence and you're building your presence in the world. It's just, we can't be expected to show up perfectly, and I don't want you to ever think that about me or for yourself. It's just so not fair. Of course I was going to feel so uncomfortable and a little bit awkward when I'm going to this whole new form of dance. I've never gone to a dance class anyways, and then this one was just a whole embodied just dance class, and it was just a new experience. So of course I was going to be but it was incredible, and these women were so powerful in their confidence, and they were so welcoming, and I just feel very thankful. And so because I can feel my confidence growing again, it makes me realize that I want to just make a little video here for y'all to help you understand some ways you can build your confidence. I work in depth with some of my clients on this, and I have a gift of being able to see things in people that are really beautiful about them that oftentimes they don't see themselves, which is interesting. But I do believe that's half of our purpose when we're relating with people to any capacity, is to mirror things. Sometimes we get shown some really not so great things in those mirrors, and sometimes we get to see wow, I really am a beautiful, wonderful, kind, caring, loving human, and I am putting good in the world, and that is a beautiful feeling, and it's something that I have a gift at doing for my clients. As you get to work with somebody, you get to know them, you get to see them, and the beautiful part about therapy is, or even coaching and having that kind of intimate type of relationship, is that you really get to see their most vulnerable pieces, and they're coming to you with the messiest bits, but it's also the most endearing thing, because what you're witnessing is somebody show up and say, hey, I'm not perfect. I'm not really trying to be perfect, but I am trying to work on some of these things because they are impacting my quality of life, or maybe the way in which I'm interacting with my family or loved ones. So can we process this? Gorgeous, beautiful, wonderful thing to do. Most of the time they come, though, having really low self-confidence. And once we start kind of working on reminding them some of the most beautiful pieces of them, which I see within the first probably 3 sessions, little tastes of it, and there's just an energy doesn't lie aspect, even virtually. It's Energy is very exchangeable. I'm sure y'all can feel my energy through here. I know you can, because I'm being very intentional that you can. So, you get to know these clients, and then, I'll just make sure I'll say something to them as a reflection of something that I find like really beautiful or endearing. And I watch them change a little, because they're like, wait, what? Really? And so then I give them a homework assignment where I want them to, at the end of each day, say 5 things that they felt really proud of themselves for that day. Ways they showed up, whether they weren't triggered by something anymore, or the fact that they kept trying, or, like if you're having some spiraling thoughts, how many times did you actually catch yourself and pull yourself back? Like, whatever it may be, a lot of times it feels like a challenge for people at first to be like, oh, I gotta name 5 things, and I ask them to write it down, or, do a video of it, or a notes on their phone. And within some time of doing this practice, which I personally do, you will see that our human propensity is to pay attention to the things that we're feeling negative about with ourselves. Whether it's you're feeling cringy or embarrassed or super duper anxious, or you're feeling like no one loves you, or you're just feeling awkward, and our brains can easily just spin on that and play it out. And it's really, really helpful to shift your perspective to, wait a minute, that's not the whole story. Like, yes, we have to hold ourselves accountable and forever be like witnessing where we have room to grow, but what about where you're already showing up? How often do you actually take note of that? What would your life look like if you allowed yourself to see the ways in which you're already showing up as equally as you're allowing yourself to see where you need to do work? As you redirect your perspective to seeing the ways in which you are showing up and the ways in which you are doing things in the world that you should be proud of yourself, then I want you to also make sure you're noticing when you have something that you're trying to work towards, and you make any progress towards it, one tiny little step, doesn't matter, every single step, crawl, inch, centimeter, whatever, I want you to say, oh, I'm showing up differently, or that feels differently, or that hit differently, like, oh. And thank yourself. Because we just get so quick to move on to the next thing, like, oh, got that. Now we're over here, that we don't even like let it settle into our bodies that like, whoa, that was a point of growth for me. And honestly, that's one of the biggest ways in which you can grow your confidence, is to just allow yourself to sit in the ways in which things are working and things you are doing in the world. And I often have my clients make a list of things they've ever like overcome in their lives. And people be out here living some lives. And so there's a lot of things people overcome, and they just are like, well, I had no choice. But it's like, kind of you did. Like, yeah, we have no choice but to keep trying to survive. But also, that is a choice also. Also, that is a choice also. When we survive certain things, and we're still showing up in the world trying, and we're still showing up in the world loving people, and we're still showing up trying to forgive and trying to make, like, that's a beautiful thing that we should be so incredibly proud of ourselves for. And it's something to definitely tap into within yourself to build that confidence. And it's also like, learn to get into your body, like do some grounding practices, dance. Like, the more you can just feel at ease in this spacesuit, earth suit that we've been given, it's easy to get a feel for how people feel about confidence when you watch them witness a confident person. Confident people do not feel any need to judge. In fact, they mostly just want to uplift you, and they'll have strong boundaries. And so if there's a point to which they don't engage, it's not from a judgment standpoint, it's more from a self-protection standpoint. Because confident people are so embodied that they don't need to judge other people to feel better about themselves. And I don't think that's why everyone judges people. I think judgment is more of a like, am I safe here? It's like when you don't have your intuition really tuned in, it's easier to tap into judgment, because it's almost we have to have judgment calls, right? Like, is that a good decision? Am I going to get murdered by this man sitting behind me on a log? Like, you know, it's not inherently bad. But the judgment where you look at somebody just being freely themselves and you're like, that comes from a place of a lack of confidence. So if you're around somebody who's a confident person, they're not going to be doing that. But if you're looking at somebody who's a confident person and you feel some type of way about them, instead of leaning into judgment, I would love for you to lean into, what would it look like if you felt the same level of confidence as them to go about your life in the way you're seeing them show up? Because your personal meh feeling is a signal that you want to tap into that. I had an interaction with somebody who told me that I like to take too many photos. And first of all, I was like, do you even know me? Like, I have been taking photos my entire life. I told my mom this story and she was like, clearly they don't know you, because this has been hope since day one. And mind you, I did grow up in, like, everyone had the passion project of wanting to be photographers. So just people were just naturally snapping photos. Like, it just was the environment I was brought around in. And then I was tall and skinny and somebody recommended I be a model, and somehow it happened. And I, speaking of confidence, had to build my confidence, because when you're in a room full of just like the most stunning people, it's hard not to feel like the ugly duckling, like the odd one out. And I have never shamed myself for having those feelings. It just took me time to learn how to move from those feelings to being like, okay, this is a sign that I want to embody that. What do I have to do to embody that confidence? But photos, I just like being on camera. I don't know. It's just, I'm a Leo sun, Leo rising, and Aries moon. And if that means anything to you, you'll be like, that makes a lot of sense. It's just inherent to who I am. And so I have a friend that just says, well, if you really want to be a true therapist and a healer, you got to stop being so self-centric. Fair, but also no. And so, because my life is my story, and I'm actually going to be able to help far more people by being embodied and confident and being myself. And myself is that playful expression. Myself is like being on camera and being comfortable and being confident. Myself is also coming on here and being like, I feel so awkward. I was worried people were going to hate me, if you watched my last video. And like, that's also true. And so I make sure to try to share all of it. But me wanting to take pictures of myself to like embrace the experience, or be like, hey girl, I'm really liking that look, or I'm really liking you today, that's not a bad thing. And we gotta stop painting that as a bad thing. A confident human who wants to be seen is beautiful. And the more we see them, the more we end up learning to embody that too, because it's the invitation. So our view of confidence could use just a little bit of a boost, you know? And it's nice to remember that witnessing somebody just oozing confidence isn't somebody that you should be like, ugh, or like jealous of or judging. Questioning makes sense, where you're just like, how are you doing that? Like, I think that's totally okay, because it's almost admirable, and it's just the awareness that you want to tap into that energy. And you can. You just have to make sure you're allowing yourself to see your wins. I hope this isn't making noise by me being all like, bah! Can you tell I'm Italian? Well, partially. The thing is if you do some of these practices, like actually writing down, what are a list of things that people have like given me as a compliment that I never received, that I never allowed myself to receive, and like, can I actually sit with the fact that maybe possibly I just might actually be really special and amazing? And what are some things that I actually can say, wait a minute, I show up really well in this aspect, and I did really good over here, and and recognizing it throughout your days and sitting in it and embodying it and celebrating it. And if you do that and you pay attention to how you feel before embodying some of these practices and then after, I promise you will notice the difference, and you will notice more of the ways in which you're able to show up to life and to the dream, and it shows up more with you because you're doing it in a like, I'm meant to be here. Hey, like, I know what I'm doing here. I know what I bring to the table, and I also know I'm supposed to be here. So thank you for seeing me and receiving me, and like, let's do this. Confidence should never be confused with perfection. I never want to ever strive to perfection, because it's in those really uncomfortable feelings where I grow, where I learn, where I can reconnect with the humanness of myself. And that expansion and that experience is something that I then now have as a tool to take to my clients, because I know with full confidence that part of my purpose in life is to use my story and my experience as the message and as the pathway for people to get to their own place of healing. And I know it as much as I know that I am in Costa Rica, Playa Pilata, living my best life. So to confidently pursue that has been what most of this showing up to doing these videos has been about, really, because it's like, hey, I know this is part of my message, and I'm going to stop feeling cringe about it and get back into being on camera and being my confident self, which then will hopefully connect with y'all. And truly, this is something that I can work with you on. So if you are listening to this and you're like, you know what, I could use a bit of that confidence you're talking about, because I want to get on stage and speak to somebody, or I want to go to an event and just talk to new people and not be freaking out, or I want to travel alone because what you're doing, it looks amazing, reach out to me. Like, I will get you there. I'm confident that I'll get you there, and I want you to have that confidence, because that's how you go and be empowered and embodied in life. And I want you to be able to see the ocean real quick. That's how you get to be here. Also, if you're a big follower of mine and you're like, I think you've already made a video about confidence before, you're right, but it's not the same. And also, it bears repeating as I continue to thankfully embody it deeper and deeper. And yeah, the more and more I tap into confidence and I watch it make my life just level up, the more I'm like, hey, I should probably talk about this again, because woo lordy. And if you find yourself in a room of confident anybody, instead of walking away or playing small, take a breath, ground yourself, look around you, and just remember that there's an invitation for you to meet them there.